Steve Gamache here with another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review. And what we're looking at is the Zakuri Aogami Super Sujihiki 240mm knife. So this line of knives, the core steel is Aogami Blue Paper Super Reactive High Carbon Steel from Hitachi. Heat treats around 62 plus Rockwell. It's not specifically stated, but with AS steel, I would suspect it's 62, 63 range, maybe higher. The construction is 3 layers. So on the outside of the knife, on each side of that harder core steel, you've got a soft reactive iron cladding. So the entire knife is reactive. This iron cladding does have a kurauchi or blacksmith finish on the top part where before the grind starts towards the edge. And then they've also coated the entire blade in a food-safe lacquer finish except for the very edge. I'd say the out-of-the-box edge is maybe a 5 out of 10. You could definitely get this a lot sharper if you'd like, but it's doable out of the box, but it was kind of a quick edge on this, so you can kind of tell that. But these knives are going to vary a little bit from sample to sample in terms of weight and dimensions. So this particular one is 163 grams or 5.7 ounces. The edge length is right about 244, about 9.6 inches from the tip all the way down to the back of the heel, known as the chin right here. And the overall lengths of just under 400 millimeters or 15.6 inches. These are fairly thick coming out of the handle, so the spine thickness above the back of the blade, the chin here, is about 4 millimeters, and then it narrows down pretty quickly. So about halfway down the blade, I measured about 2.9 or right around 3 millimeters. And then these don't have a lot of taper, so you can see they hold quite a bit of that until you hit the grind of the blade, and you can see that grind on there. And so it gets fairly thin at the very, very tip, but it holds a fair amount of spine towards the tip. And these are quite stiff, so there's a lot of confidence there, a lot of stiffness. Blade height on this one's about 33.5 millimeters at the back. The handles are D-shaped, kind of right-hand biased, although as a lefty, I don't really, D handles don't bother me, but so it's a D-shaped rosewood, and they put a plastic resin ferrule over there, so it's like a little cap they put on there, and sleeve, if you will. So it's these usually have a jump between the wood and the plastic just because of the nature of how they make them, and this is no exception. But the rosewood's a nice touch on this. They've got a fairly thin neck, which is a fair amount of room there if you want to put your finger there, if you're going to do a pinch for using it, however your particular preference for hand holding it is. These are fairly thin handles, which is appropriate for this style of blade. It's about 68 millimeters or 2.7 inches in circumference on that wood right before it meets the ferrule. And you'll probably want to seal that up. There's some gaps in there when they put the handle on there, so I'd probably seal that up with something to keep moisture out of it. These blades have some definite blacksmith character to them. They're a bit on the rustic side. They're pretty cool looking knives, actually. And here's a good look at it. So on the right side of the blade, you've got embossed kanji, where it's stamped into the blade. And you can see the kurauchi finish here. It's a fairly smooth finish. They've got kind of a sandblasted faux kasumi finish on the blade grind here, the blade road or the grind area of the blade, and then you can see the core steel showing at the edge. On the left side of the blade, if you were to hold it, you can see they've got the Zakuri logo stamped in there, or name stamped in there, and then also kanji as well. Let's see. The grinds look fairly decent. This is not an, super low. This is actually a, fairly low price knife for this style and Aogami Super. But the grinds look pretty clean. It's a little hard to tell till you put these knives on stones what the grinds are like, if there's any high spots or low spots on the blade road, but they look fairly clean. The edge itself has, on both of these samples, had a couple of high spots, low spots. It wasn't anything major, but you might want to clean that up if you do some board work with it. Both knives were very, very straight, looking at the spine and the cutting edge. And as far as balance point goes, they're going to be pretty, excuse me, they're going to be pretty weight forward, which is pretty standard for a knife of this style. So there's your balance point. Pinch grip is a little bit behind that. Let's see. The fit and finish is decent, actually. They've relieved the choil a little bit. It's not a super smooth finish on it, but it's relieved enough to be comfortable, and the spine's not objectionable. So, yeah, they've done a nice job on these. It's not a high-end knife, but it's definitely got a lot of character. The profile looks like this if you intend on doing some board work with it versus the slicing job for which it was intended. And you can see there's a little bit of a kind of a high spot right in there, and then there's another kind of little flattish area here. So this could use just a little bit of tweaking to smooth it out, but there's your profile on it. It's not really meant to rock. It's really a slicing knife, as we already said. So if you're interested in getting into an Aogami super rustic Sujihiki and something with some thickness to it and some spine to it, it's a 50-50-ish grind on it. Good for lefties and righties, so it's a pretty cool knife. So this is the Zakuri Aogami Super Sujihiki 240mm knife.